Hello, welcome in. Today, I'm gonna convince y'all to read an entire book series because if you're a weird girly, you're gonna like these books. Let me tell you that. So basically, I bought a book in 2019 that I read in one night. I literally could not put it down. It was 200 pages. It was fascinating. It was terrifying. I was enthralled with it. I wrote a book report on it for school. And that book was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This book this book was made into a movie. I don't know if y'all can see, but that's Natalie Portman on the cover. Um, and it was made into a movie. And if you've seen the movie and you're like, I didn't really like the movie, I didn't like the movie either. Ignore that. Ignore that voice in your head. I didn't like the movie either. Yet I still read this book and proceeded to read the next two books in the whole series. Because this has got to be one of the most fantastic, weird fiction, ecological horror, sci-fi books that I've read. And I know that that's not a high bar to jump over, but these were fantastic, okay? The first of all, Annihilation, the first one in the series, they start out. There is a area called Area X, and it is basically cut off from the rest of the world, and it's been cut off for like 30 years. And since then, a agency has been created called the Southern Reach, who is investigating what this is. What is Area X? What is in there? Why does no one ever come out of it? Why did everyone who was there disappear? All this stuff, right? There's this entire border. You cannot cross over into Area X unless you go through this one very specific doorway. The only reason you can see it is there's this slight change in the slightly blurred way that it looks, that where there's a light coming through. And so they figured out how to go in, and they've sent over 30 expeditions into this unknown world, and only some of them have come back, and the ones who have come back have came back immediately, had stage 4 aggressive cancer, all died within the year, or B, they came back, but they were shells of their former selves, like complete shells. There's only one man who came back in the beginning who like is kind of sane, but even he's like definitely hiding from something or hiding something from everyone else. So this first book focuses on an expedition that is sent forth. It is the first all women's expedition because all the previous ones were men, and they thought maybe something about the women would make it not kill them. And so this is essentially the journal of the biologist who goes into Area X with her group, and that's the Natalie Portman character from the movie. And the rest of this book is just like pure terror, just ecological horror up like everywhere, okay? It's not a thriller. The movie was a thriller. It's not a thriller. This is like a creeping dread. I don't know what's going on, but I can't stop. Like, I cannot look away. It's a car crash in slow motion, but like in the best way possible, okay? I love this book. Anyway, so I read that in 2019, and then I bought like immediately the next two books. And then I just didn't read them. I don't know what happened, but they've been sitting on my shelf for 4 years now. And so I was always convinced the reason why was because this book was good and the other two weren't. Because I started the second one and I couldn't super get into it. But I was in high school, and I think that had something to do with it. I think I just didn't have the patience for his writing, for Vandermeer's writing, the way that this book, I didn't need to have that patience with it. And so this is the prime horror book, okay? The first one, you don't know what's going on. There are no answers. Like, just the entire thing, mystery after mystery after mystery, and terror and death and destruction. It's fantastic. I love it so much, okay? Then the second book is Authority. And this focuses on the outside of Area X. It focuses on the Southern Reach, which is the agency that sent the expedition in, and it discusses who the people are that went into the expedition. a little bit. It mostly it focuses on one of them a lot. And so there's this new director who's come in after the expedition failed, and he's trying to make sense of everything that the previous director left behind. Meanwhile, he's working with a group of people who have been working at the Southern Reach on this mystery for decades at this point, and all of them are hiding something. All of them have been touched in some way by Area X and are becoming something other, and it's fantastic. Um, it also basically ties in with the first one really well without relying on this premise too much, because this one is completely set outside of Area X, and so he had to figure out a way to make you still fascinated and horrified by what's going on, even though it's in the regular world. And like that's supposed to be the contrast, right? Area X is horrifying, this is the regular world. But it's so close to Area X, and it's been so entrenched with Area X for years that it's definitely affected. And they have they house people who have come back from the previous expeditions. They literally like hold them hostage. They have a science division that's like really weird and creepy and has a lot of plants that really shouldn't be still alive. He finds a plant living in one of the director's drawers that just shouldn't be living. Just all this stuff. I can't tell you everything because then it'll spoil it, but this is less of a horror. There's still the creeping dread. There's a couple of parts that really bring back out that horror aspect, especially towards the end of it when like things start to get revealed, but like not the big stuff, the smaller mysteries within this book. It follows a different main character. So this one has the biologist. We never learn her name, by the way. This is the biologist. And then this main character is, his name is, he goes by Control, but his name's John Rodriguez, and he's like an ex special forces operative basically, and he's very like, he definitely has an odd personality, but he's very funny, because there's different parts, like she's fairly serious, she's very cynical, she has a cynical sarcasm to her, and it's her journals, so it's a completely unreliable narrator, so you don't know what's really going on, which is great. But then with Authority, it's John Rodriguez Control, and he is like, he has that dry sense of humor too, but it's funny. I laughed out loud multiple times reading this, but it did not break me out of the horror aspect. It worked really well, and I was really impressed by it. And it's also, I do have to say, it's definitely the weakest of the three books, but that doesn't mean a lot because I like all three of them. Like, all three of them are good. It's just this one is the weakest one. Just because it's that in between, it's that bridge. He's trying to get you from point A to point B, and sometimes there's some stretching involved. But this book is only 340 pages long. Super worth a read. I read this in about a day and a half. Not straight, just like a couple hours both days. It's super easy to read through. He has such a purple prose writing style, but it doesn't detract. Like, it adds. It's an asset to both of these books. All of these books, it's an asset. There was one review that was like, if you're tired of J.J. Abrams disappointing you with every movie he makes, read this instead. And I have to say that did apply to me. So that was Authority. And then the third and final book is Acceptance. And this one is, you're back in Area X, but you're back in Area X in different time periods. One of them is before Area X showed up and when it was just a regular place, like a seaside village. And then one is focused on the previous director of the Southern Reach facilities before Control, before John took over. And then the third section is focusing on people who are currently in Area X and what they're dealing with and where they're going. And it ends very ambiguously. And so this one ties together the first two books deliciously, okay? Because it has both Area X in it, but it also, because it has the previous director, it has her experiences at the agency and how it kind of got to the weirdness that Control John walked into in book 2. And so it really answers a lot of questions, but not that many, okay? I have to warn y'all, if you're gonna read this book series, you cannot need concrete black and white answers by the end of it, because you will not get it, period. Okay, it just will not happen. But if you ever read Piranesi by Susanna Clark, or Trust by Hernan Diaz, or let's see, what else is there? Those are the two ones that I've read. I've heard House of Leaves is also very similar to these books. So if you read those and you liked them, then give this a try, because I'm in love. I'm in love with these books. Okay. Overarchingly, over the 3 books, it's such a exploration of how much can the human brain actually comprehend. Like, that's a big thing with Area X, and like what it actually is that they don't there's an aspect of, they've been researching this for years, right? For just literal years, but they haven't gotten anything. They haven't gotten anywhere. They have a little bit here and there, and like they can understand the results of Area X, but not what caused it, what's happening in it, why it happens the way it does. I mean, Area X is literally rewriting the genome and the DNA, like the physical attributes, everything of every creature and thing that goes in there. They find like this one where it's literally an amalgamation of a human and something else, and it's just beyond like, and I say that very blandly, but it's horrifying when you read it. Basically just like science as it's an exploration of an experience rather than concrete evidence and information. It like basically it kind of puts forward the older version of science of just like collecting information. You don't know what's going on, but like, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm feeling, this is what it's doing to me. I don't know why. And it's putting that forward instead of this idea of, I'm going to do experiments until brain falls out of my head and I get information and I get data and I get concrete evidence. So that's why I really love this. It's also just like a ecological observation of what an invasive species does to an area. It's an exploration of identity and who you are and how it affects the things around you. And this is not a spoiler. In the first book, no one has a name. Every person goes by a title, a description of what their job is within Area X. And so the biologist is the biologist. The closest thing we get to a name for her throughout the entire series is Ghost Bird, which is a nickname. But it's not her name. It's not. And so this gives you a completely different visualization of who this person is. And I thought that was really interesting. I didn't think much of it when I first read Annihilation, but reading the second two, I definitely understand it more, I think. But it's just an exploration of that, because then with Authority, John Rodriguez does the same thing. His name is Control. He goes by Control, and what that tells you is that he wants to be in control. But it also goes more than that. It becomes a mask that he has to cling to literally survive, because he's gonna lose his mind, and it's great. It's the same with a lot of them. The director, for the old director that Control takes over for, we don't learn her name until much later on, and then even that turns out to not be totally correct, which is fantastic. Part of Authority is is like corporate infrastructure, corporate corruption. It's an example of corporate corruption, agency corruption within business, I guess, within the government. That's throughout this book. And so he ties it together with acceptance really well, of just being like corruption in the ecological world, corruption in this government human-made world. So it's corruption in the nature-based world that's not made by humans. And it's either made by a god or an alien, like they don't know. And then human-made foundations that turns into corruption and change and oddness. And so I think it's just like so good. I love it so much. Now that I'm taking a deep breath. So I would recommend reading them. Also, don't do what I did. And by that, I mean, do not read the first one 4 years before you read the last two, because it took me so long to connect some dots that would not have taken me that long had I read this maybe a month ago. but they're so short reads. Each of them are, the last two are like 330 pages ish, 340 ish, and then this one's only 200, and that's to the total end too. It's not even to like the end of the story, so it's like 190 something. So give this a try, get enthralled with it. Let me know if you read it, because I love it, and literally no one I know has read it. I've been talking everyone's ear off about it, and they're all like, they've seen the movie, which is fine. I just don't think the movie is the same as the books. The ending is definitely not the same. The movie's way more jump scare, where these are not jump scare until they have to be, right? So it's not overuse of that. But yeah, so that is Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance by Jeff Vandermeer. I have one of his other books, if I can remember the name of it, that I'm gonna read, and I'm really excited about. It's a different world, it's a different setup, but it's still his weird fiction. He really likes the ecologically weird stuff. I read one of his short stories. I think it's called The World is Full of Monsters. It goes nowhere, but I'm like, yeah, no, this is fantastic, actually. I think it might have actually, these guys, I think, are connected to that one. I don't know if maybe that came first and then he wrote the full stories for it. But yeah, so if you like ecological horror, if you like a little bit of body horror, but like not too bad of body horror, but like a little bit, you like corruption, weirdness, weird fiction, if you like House of Leaves, just please give this a try and let me know what you thought of it, because I'm in love. I'm in love with these. I literally finished Acceptance 30 minutes ago. I'm not even kidding. I like read it and I was like, I'm gonna convince everyone else to read this, because I'm in love. Okay. But yeah. Anyway, okay, go read these books. I'm gonna go eat dinner. Have a good day.